and welcome back to our Call to Help podcast. Today's episode is a very different episode than we normally do, and that's because it's more of a personal story about us and our lives and something we've experienced within the past year, I guess, past month. Lots of stuff has been happening, but it is the story of our first birth and labor story and part of our pregnancy and just kind of what we experienced. And we decided to film an episode about this because there's a lot of stuff that happened that we felt that we just need to share. A lot of just real vulnerable things. And, within our life and businesses, we just want to be real and vulnerable and sharing what truly happens, because I think that's what we feel like we're called to do. And we just felt like God was leading us to tell the story and basically just help other people who may have gone through similar things know they're not alone. And I don't know if Daniel wants to add anything to it.
Yeah, I mean, our heart is really just to encourage people. It is a vulnerable topic, but if we can speak into people's lives and tell our story in a way that encourages other people, that is our goal and our mission. So we're excited. Let's jump in.
Yeah, so part of the story, well, technically it all starts back when we found out we were pregnant in May of 2024. That's the start of it, whatever. But things really didn't get crazy until July of 2024, when I actually found out, via ultrasound, that I ended up having a 6-centimeter ovarian cyst on one of my ovaries. And we didn't really know how that would affect the rest of the pregnancy and everything, because we didn't know if it could hurt baby or what was going to happen. During one of our ultrasounds, we also found out that baby Cook, we'll call him baby Cook right now.
Baby Cookie.
Baby Cookie, whatever. That he had a 2-cord umbilical cord, which means he only had one. Help me remember how this works.
One artery, one vein.
Yeah. So
instead of
normally there's
two arteries and 2
veins,
or 2 veins and 1 artery. I'm not sure, but
it
was 1 and 1 instead of 2.
Yeah, it's there's only 2 things going to carrying stuff to his body when there's only 2 going in, 1 going out, and there's only 1 of each, so 1 going in, 1 going out type of thing. And so they're all concerned about him having growing issues and da da da. And so they're we're gonna have to do more ultrasounds, and I really didn't want to do more ultrasounds because I don't like it. I'm that weird person who does not like a lot of ultrasounds because I don't like the risks it could lead to in the future. Nothing's proven. I just didn't like the idea of it. But so we were kind of just okay, we're gonna figure it out. And Daniel wants to say something.
Well, our goal was to have as natural a birth as possible, and it seemed that with each new appointment, there was some other sort of complication, and we're oh, okay, what's happening? We still want to do natural, but there are these things that are coming in our way that are kind of preventing that. So it was quite a journey, and just with each new challenging thing that we didn't expect, it was kind of crazy, but.
Yeah, and so that was the start to just kind of finding out just different complications that were starting to rise. And at first, okay, we can deal with this. It'll probably be fine. I really tried not to freak out. But then, so we kind of just kept going throughout pregnancy, there's all the normal pregnancy weird stuff. But then, in just throughout the next few months, my cyst just was causing me more pain. And finally, in September, I started just having so much abdominal pain, where the cyst was basically. I would just feel it all the time. It actually caused me I had to stop exercising because it was too painful to, I couldn't lift weights. I couldn't do any of the exercise stuff that I had been doing before, which caused me to kind of get weaker throughout pregnancy and just kind of have a harder time coping. But then it was actually a few days before a wedding, our first fall wedding in September, that we ended up in the ER. I ended up in the ER. We went together because I started having pain and stuff, and so basically the cyst was actually getting ready to burst inside of me, and this ovarian cyst bursting is very, very painful and not fun to deal with. But thankfully, it actually burst the day before the first wedding we photographed. So on September 27th, 2024, I remember sitting in the kitchen, and it just. I just remember feeling this severe pain. I described it a 9 out of 10 pain.
And I didn't know anything about this. I didn't find out that this had happened until a couple days later.
Oh, that's true. Were you at a gig or something?
I was at work.
Totally
yes.
Not even. Yeah, I literally was that close to calling 911 because I was something is really wrong. But then within 15 minutes, it subsided. But I felt fatigued, weak, I was gonna pass out suddenly so bad, and I was freaking out. I was oh my gosh, how am I gonna shoot the wedding tomorrow? I literally reached out to 10 different photographers trying to find backups, like shooters, just in case I physically could not shoot the wedding next day. Thankfully, the next day I took like so much acetaminophen, like literally like 2,000. Like I took the max dose to get through the wedding day, and it was the best day I had in like a long time. Like it was like, oh, the pain is gone, it's great. Like it was a super fun wedding day. My couple was super chill, although I did not tell them what was going on because I did not want to like ruin their wedding day. But anyway, so that's kind of that story. And so I was actually very thankful that it ended up bursting at that time, because it would have been really hard to deal with going throughout wedding season. Just because the pressure of your uterus growing was putting pressure on the cyst, and so that literally just, the pressure made it rupture basically. And thankfully baby was totally fine. Like I think we ended up at one of our next appointments, we just kept checking on baby, and baby was fine, and it didn't seem to bother him at all, and we were able to tell that the cyst was gone at our next appointment, and I was like, oh, this is wonderful, how exciting. Yeah, and so then the next thing, sorry, did you want to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, like, with the ovarian cyst, they told us that it was like natural for it to just kind of dissipate on its own, and they said that it was a bad thing if it burst. It could cause some potential impact to Jen, health-wise. And so,
but it never did.
But it didn't. So
it's like a miracle. We're like, okay.
It burst. It was painful, but after that, like, she had relief, and so that was just a huge blessing from God that we were so thankful for.
Yeah, I was glad that it was gone. I was like, yes, finally it's gone.
Yeah, when we looked at the ultrasound and they said, oh, your cyst is gone, we were relieved.
Yep. So then we kept doing wedding season September, October, and November, and then it came time to do the test you have to take for gestational diabetes to see if you have that or not, like the blood sugar test. And you have to drink this like ridiculously sugary drink that is just so stupid and like the worst thing for you. And I'm like, I eat so healthy. Like, I'm not going to have this problem. Like, I'm not going to have like blood sugar issues. And then what do you know?
We don't need this gestational diabetes test.
We don't need this. It was so
she doesn't
funny.
Have it.
Like, I don't have it.
Of course not.
I eat so healthy. I hate bad food, whatever. And so then turns out I was diagnosed with gestational diabetes. So I had to learn how to curb my diet to like keep my blood sugar levels like within the correct range. Now I do think that the drink they gave me was so sugary that like my body wasn't used to processing sugar, and so it was just like at least that much of it at once, and so it was just like it freaked out basically. But there's a thing with the reason you get gestational diabetes is because your placenta, basically your placenta, it's attached to baby in your womb is like that's what causes gestational diabetes, but it doesn't happen like in every pregnancy. Like it just depends on the placenta. Like basically the placenta blocks my body's ability to properly regulate insulin. So then like it's just a pregnancy thing. So that when you end up delivering the baby and the placenta comes out, then gestational diabetes basically just goes away normally. That's what's supposed to happen. I think that happened. Anyways.
Didn't really.
Well, we haven't had our postpartum appointment yet, so we'll figure it out eventually.
I guess we'll find out.
Oh, well, maybe we should have not filmed this soon. Just kidding, it's fine. Anyways, so then we started the whole gestational diabetes adventure. At first I was like so annoyed because I still definitely want to eat sugar, and you just have to like...
Yeah, you have to curb your diet.
Curb your diet, and going into the holidays, oh my gosh, it was so hard. Funny enough, this wasn't the hardest thing that happened. Nope.
But we did live on chicken, quinoa, and
vegetables,
broccoli, peppers.
Which actually is very good. I actually don't mind that at all.
Yeah.
It just in the moment it felt painful.
Hey, here's the thing: if you put ketchup on quinoa, it tastes really good.
I do like doing that. It's very strange, but it is so good. Well, I can't eat ketchup. I couldn't eat ketchup because it had sugar in it.
It's true.
My life. Okay.
Anyways.
Mustard. Okay, sure.
Now it just sounds weird.
Okay, so let's go to December of 2024 and see what happened next.
December.
Yay!
Oh, yeah.
So I'd say maybe halfway through the month, earlier in the month. So kind of throughout pregnancy, maybe even end of November, but probably early December, I started just getting itchy and stuff. Also, I'm just such a tiny person, so I was pretty much just all baby. And because of the gestational diabetes, I couldn't eat a lot of carbs. And so what was happening is baby kept gaining weight, but I really wasn't gaining weight like myself. I was just becoming my cheeks were falling in. I was just a skinny little person. And then I just had this massive baby bump basically from probably 7 months on, maybe 6 months on. It was just, I was basically just all baby. So because of that,
and
my
she carried
skin,
really low. So.
Yeah, my skin was just so stretchy that I had excessive skin stretching, like excessive, to the point that I actually ended up developing this kind of rare rash called pups rash, which is the most like itchy, just painful, annoying, like just miserable rash you can get during pregnancy.
And they told us that itching was normal, so we didn't think it was pups rash at first. So
that's true.
As far as we were concerned, it was just normal itching in pregnancy, but it got worse and worse and worse until it was unbearable.
Yeah, like I remember going to midwives being like, oh my gosh, I feel itchy. Like, is this normal? I remember like I was trying like vitamin E oil. I tried so many different creams like on my stomach to try to like make it like less itchy, but it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I just kept telling myself, well, it's normal to be itchy because that's just like normal pregnancy things. I don't know, whatever. But it just kept getting worse. And then I started noticing that I started getting this like red rash thing on my stomach. And I was like, what's that? But I was also just thought that, oh, maybe that's a stretch mark. Like, again, like when it's your first time pregnant, you do not know it's normal. And so you just think that everything is like normal until it becomes like so bad that you feel like you're dying.
And she has a high tolerance for pain, so.
I just deal with things because I think I have to. So anyways, pups rash is a rash that like develops from like excessive skin stretching that starts like on your stomach and it's like this red rashy rash thing. And rashy rash thing. It happens in 1 out of 160 to 300 pregnancies. So I actually ended up self-diagnosing myself from Google and pictures and just trying to figure out what was going on with my symptoms. And and I had to go to midwives and tell them, I think I have this. Can you prescribe me something for it? Because this is awful.
We made a phone call actually because they were closed at the time. Oh, yeah. And they prescribed the medicine over the phone and we picked it up.
Hydroxyvine. Is that what it's called?
Hydroxyzine. I think.
Oh.
Hydroxyzine.
I'm so bad at saying medicine names. Anyways.
It was a long, complicated word.
And the tricky thing with pups rash is that it gets way worse at night. So like literally from probably mid-December through like partway into January, I was up every night tossing and turning like every hour, or sometimes I have to get up in the middle of the night and just sit there and like my whole body, because like the rash, it spread to like my whole body. Like it didn't get on my face.
It looked like she had some sort of rare disease, and
it was awful.
Oh my goodness, what's happening?
And I would like intensely itch in the middle of the night, so I'm trying to like deal with this. And online said there's no cure. The midwives were like, unfortunately, there's no cure. Da, da, da. And I'm just like, it was way worse than gestational diabetes because it literally felt like every night I was having to. It felt like I was prepping for labor by having to breathe through the pain of the intense. It was like a burning itch, like over my whole body.
What, 3 months out?
No,
2 months
about
out?
a month. It normally develops in the last 4 weeks of pregnancy, but it just.
But even a month was like.
It was
to
very
have to
painful.
deal with that itchiness was unfathomable for Jen. It's like,
it was so bad.
Because she was oftentimes waking up every 15 minutes. Every hour.
Every hour.
Okay.
Every hour. Because, I mean, you can't be comfortable when
you're
she's
not getting
either.
sleep.
I wasn't getting sleep.
Itching intensely. Like, we had to do something about it.
So
like,
bad.
we couldn't just accept the fact that there's no cure for this. So, she did a whole lot of research.
Yeah, I did research, and I found this one lady of mine who ended up getting pups rash when she was, like, maybe 10. Like, really early on in her pregnancy, like, a couple weeks pregnant. And she ended up changing her diet to help reduce the itchiness and the rash. And then she also did this thing called tar soap, or pine tar soap to wash herself with. So like I had to like wash my hands with pine tar soap in cold water. You can't use hot water because hot water inflames the rash. It makes it spread, it makes it way worse. So like I could not take hot showers for a month. I was like taking freezing cold showers. So I'm like.
But you started off taking hot showers because it was relieving.
Oh yeah. It made it like
when
it
you have
burned
an itch and you
itched.
put the hot water acts as like a scratching. It kind of brings a temporary relief to an itchy sore, but then that just makes it spread.
Yeah. So I actually ended up making it worse without realizing it, thinking I was making it better. And then I had to take cold showers, and my belly was so big that my belly was actually going numb, and I was having nerve pain like in the top of my stomach because it was just so stretched, and he was just like a heavy baby and I'm just such a tiny person. And so it just basically was the point where I was miserable like all the time. And like there was really nothing I could do to.
No relief.
There was no relief for like a month.
Yeah. And
so the hydroxyvine, the medicine they gave me did help a little bit during the day. But at night, it was just like struggling to get through every night, basically. And so going into labor was just, I was already exhausted, which is not good. Yeah. Anyway, so trying to think.
We started praying.
Anything we should add to that?
I think we prayed like throughout the whole pregnancy, but
yes,
especially when these things started happening, we just kept diligently praying for relief because it was intense. Yeah. Yeah. Painful to remember it.
So the lady, I'm going to link in the description to the lady I found who figured out how to actually get the rash to go away from diet and certain like changes she made to her life. Because she's the only person on the internet I found who actually found a way to help reduce the rash in a way. And doctors and midwives, they won't tell you about it. They don't know about it because all they give you is drugs, literally.
Let me ask you this.
So,
how long did it take you to find her? Like, if she's the only one you found on the internet, were you searching
maybe
for
like 2 weeks?
2 weeks, 2 whole weeks
maybe?
of searching.
I don't remember exactly. Man, I should have written that part down.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It was a little bit, it got really bad before I was like, I just can't. Like, there's going to be something. I was literally to the point I was like, I will do anything to get this to like subside and go away.
And did you find her on a YouTube video or was it?
It was a blog.
A blog?
I'll link the blog.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Like, she does have YouTube videos. She does have a YouTube channel too. She's actually like into like yoga or meditation. It was something interesting. Anyways, I will link the info down below because she's the best resource when it comes to dealing with pups rash to actually get it better a little bit. Anyways,
and it wasn't the worst part.
Nope.
So let's continue.
Pups rash wasn't the worst part. Oh no, it was really bad. So, anyway, so I'm just trying to deal with this. We're going through Christmas, like again, like all the sweets, all the things. I can't eat it. I'm itchy. I'm in pain. This is awful. Whatever.
I helped her out by not putting sugar in the cranberry sauce.
For Thanksgiving. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, like everything was just.
I think we just used oranges.
Although that was before I really realized I had pups rash. Thanksgiving.
Oh.
Whatever. It happened in like December.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay. Well. So now we're gonna kind of go into January 2025, and we decided that I wanted to get checked for this thing called cholestasis because it was this other like liver condition that can also cause like itchiness, like kind of all over your whole body. And I was like, and cholestasis is a condition in which basically the bile acids in your liver are elevated, and it's actually dangerous to baby. So if you get diagnosed with cholestasis, you have an emergency and you need to go get the baby out because there is a very small percentage of stillbirth past like certain weeks being pregnant. So I was like, I really should go get checked for this. Just make sure it's probably not that because like it's probably just pups rash, but I just want to be extra careful.
And what prompted this, I think, was the fact that the rash had spread over her entire body. We're talking like her legs, her hands, stomach, everywhere.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure.
Looked like something more, I don't know. I'd never seen anything like it. It looked like a rare disease, leprosy. Yeah. I don't know, what have you. It was really bad.
Yeah. And how I actually discovered that this pups rash was not normal is that, like, you know how like Facebook pitches you all these reels or like Instagram of like whatever you're going through. So like I would see like pregnant ladies and they're all like showing off their bellies and they all look clean and clear. And I'm like, that's not what mine looks like. Mine looks like I'm dying.
It's Photoshop.
And so, no, and so I was like, something is really wrong here. Anyways, so I basically, so we decided to go in and have an appointment with my midwives. And basically we did like a blood test because we basically wanted to rule out cholestasis to make sure it wasn't that.
Take extra precautions.
Yeah, so did a blood test. Yes, we did a blood test, and then fun fact so that was like maybe the first week of January. Keep in mind my due date is January 20th, so we're getting closer, but I'm still just like ready to get the baby out. Like I can barely walk. All I can do is sit on the couch because my body's weak. He's so heavy. I'm so little. I have no muscles left in my body because he took them all. That's literally what happened. It's hilarious. I used to have like good muscles from working out at Pure Barre, and then I had to stop working at Pure Barre because of the cyst, because the midwives told me I couldn't exercise because of the cyst and and the issues it could cause with baby. So I stopped exercising, and then I got weaker and weaker and weaker throughout the pregnancy to the point that all I could do was sit on the couch, and like walking for like 30 seconds to a minute was so painful, like nerve pain and just from my stomach, just because of how excessively stretched I was.
Yeah, she was numb. She couldn't feel it.
Yeah, I literally could not feel half my belly for like the entire day.
Jumping ahead, like when she was having contractions, like she asked me to feel her belly to see if I could tell when the contraction started.
Well, that was like Braxton Hicks. Or was that like
No, I
some
was
real
also during
contractions
labor.
or during early labor contractions? Like I couldn't really tell if it was weird.
Yeah, because she was so numb.
Because I was so numb.
Yeah.
I was like, will I ever be able to feel my tummy again? Anyways, so fun fact, on January 8th, 2025, I logged into my like special app with the midwife, and I found out that my bile acids in my liver were at a 14, and they're supposed to be within 0 to 10. So what that
there were
means
elevated
is
levels.
that I had elevated bile acid levels in my liver, which means I did have a very mild like cholestasis condition. Anything under 40 is considered mild. Anything over 40 is considered like extreme. Like you need to come and be induced this minute to get this baby out, or else there's a big risk of stillbirth.
And again,
big,
we were super huge on wanting a natural birth, and so when they told us we had cholestasis, they said, "So sorry, you're gonna need to like come in immediately for pitocin for induction."
Well,
they didn't say pitocin, but they
They
said
told
that.
me immediately.
But the way they said the way they were talking about it, they wanted us to come in the next like day or two, and our due date was
January 20th.
January 20th, so that was like 2 or 3 weeks out.
They wanted me to come in, so we found out. I think they called me on. Let me think here. I think they called me on January 9th. Or was it the 8th? Okay, it was either the 8th or the 9th.
I don't remember.
And they told me that they wanted to bring me in for induction, like a medical induction, before Sunday. So before January, I need a calendar. I can't figure this out. Like before Sunday or whatever that date was. Like, I can't remember. Oh, 12th, before the 12th. That's what it was.
Yep.
They basically wanted to get, because I would be 39 weeks on Monday, on the 13th, and they wanted, there was basically a 0.5% chance of stillbirth if delivered before 39 weeks. Is that what it was?
After,
like you'd have
after 39
Is
weeks.
it after or is it before? I think
Well,
after it gets more extreme.
Yeah, after. There was a chance of stillbirth after 39 weeks, or at least an elevated chance, and so they wanted to get the baby out pronto. And so it caught us off guard to some degree, but we were also already expecting that he would come earlier than the due date. We just didn't expect it to be sprung on us like, oh, you should come into the hospital in the next couple days. So it was really, it took us by surprise, and we're like, oh my goodness, what do we do? Because there's a point in time where you have to give up your desires and your preferences. Like, even though we wanted to have a natural labor, like, we're talking the baby's life is at risk. Given it's a low-ish risk, but we're not even gonna take a 0.5% chance because this is our baby we're talking about.
Like, oh no.
So that's when we decided to do induction.
Yeah.
But we still didn't want a medical induction, so we tried to do it naturally.
Yeah. So I was talking with one of the midwives. At first they were like, okay, yeah, we want you to come in like before Sunday because we need to get the baby out by Sunday, before Sunday. And I'm still just processing this because I've just found this out like literally that day or 24 hours ago, no, the funny thing is Daniel and I had thought that the baby would come early. My whole pregnancy, I just thought, I'm so big, I don't think I'm gonna make it 40 weeks. I think I'm gonna break. Like I literally felt like my stomach was just gonna break open because it was so like stretched and so like painfully hard to move.
Crazy.
Yeah. And also it's funny, it was actually snowing. It was actually, there was gonna be a snowstorm on the 10th and 11th.
Yeah, like 5 to 6 inches of snow. And like a week before, we were like, you know what? I bet baby's gonna come right during the snowstorm.
During the snow, because I'm from Vermont, so that just makes sense, right? Like, so we were just joking, like, oh, that's probably gonna happen. Like, yay, whatever.
We kind of counted on it, and it was right.
It was correct. Kind of right, yes. Anyways, so when I was talking to the midwives on the phone, I think at one point, or was it on the phone? Maybe it was in the app. I don't remember.
We had a telehealth appointment.
Was that what happened?
And that's where we talked about what cholestasis was and what the diagnosis meant and what we needed to do, how serious was this. So that's what that appointment was about.
They said they had a hospital room for me, like a labor and delivery room, to come in at 7 or 8 p.m. on Thursday evening. So like on the 9th, they wanted me to come in for medical induction that evening. But I was so wrapped up with like, I want everything to be natural. And I still did. I mean, I still do. Like future pregnancies, I still want to be natural because everything went through was insane. So my wonderful doula, Isabel, she comes into play like this evening, and she is like a miracle that she was able to be there and help us through it all because we would have died anyways. I basically made the decision like, okay, I think we need to try natural induction tonight at home first, because I really wanted to try to get my body going into labor without being medically induced, because when you're medically induced with all the drugs and everything they give you, Cytotec and Pitocin makes contractions so much stronger than natural labor contractions. And I really wanted to avoid that. And I also know with Pitocin, like there's way more chance, like that's an intervention. And the more interventions you have in the hospital, it leads to more interventions. That's just how hospitals work. And it's not my favorite thing. And so I really wanted to try natural induction because I didn't want to deal with those harder contractions and everything. And because we wanted to do everything unmedicated, I just didn't want to get into Pitocin land. Like I didn't want to get into anything land. I'm like, oh man. And so I called Isabel and discussed doing natural like labor induction with me like at our apartment that evening. And she thought about it for a little while, and then she's very kind to agree. So she actually came over at probably about 7 p.m. ish. Something like that.
7:15.
For all her special supplies.
Yep.
And she's trained to be a midwife too, but she was my doula for this. So she knows all things. And so at 7:15 p.m. on Thursday night, the 9th of January, we started doing natural like induction basically with Isabel at our apartment. And like we were like basically trying to get early labor started at first, and the goal was to get us into active labor by the morning so we could then head into the hospital and finish it up and have baby the next day. That was the goal.
So what sort of things did we try?
Yeah, so basically we were like, so she had me like walking up and down stairs. We were doing pumping, like I had my pump, so I had to start pumping, and normally people don't pump before having a baby. So that was kind of crazy. But yeah, we were doing pumping. I was walking up and down our stairs in our apartment because movement can help. Once contractions are going a little bit, it can help keep them going. I was doing squats, lunges. She had like all these special like midwife herbs that she would like either rub on my stomach, or like I would drink some stuff that she had, and it definitely did like make contractions start, like it did. But so we worked on this for literally 8 hours from 7:15 p.m. until 4 a.m. the next day.
We watched 3 Christmas movies.
We watched 3 Christmas movies to entertain ourselves, and I was eating snacks and da-da-da. I was kind of having fun, but I was also like, this is kind of exhausting. And let's just say, in early labor, you're supposed to be resting to save energy for active labor and transition and actually having a baby.
And we did not do that.
And we were exhausting ourselves.
Yeah, and I had worked this day too. Like, I had come home from work, and that's when we got the call that we should consider an induction. Mm-hmm. So I came into this tired too.
I actually went into this whole labor experience thinking, this is going to be a 40-hour labor, and it's going to be hard, and you're going to have to push through, because the only way through this is through. Like, there's no going back now. Whatever happens, you're going to have to push through whatever happened. And I'm glad I had that mindset, because that's what happened. Yeah. Anyways, so by 4 a.m. on Friday morning, we were all kind of exhausted. And so Isabel and the contractions were not getting long enough to be in active labor yet. They were all kind of at like 30 seconds, 45 seconds, some were a minute. But like basically to get into active labor, all your contractions have to be over a minute long and have like a break in between them for it to be considered like active labor. So we weren't in active labor. We were in early labor still, probably very early labor. Basically, long story short, my body was not ready to actually go into labor on its own. And so we were trying to force to do something I wasn't ready to. And so it was just not going. Like it was a little bit, but it wasn't very extreme at all. And so at 4 a.m. we decided to take a 4-hour break and just sleep, because we didn't want to go to the hospital yet if we were not making good progress or like being exhausted.
Well, at this point we knew we had to go into the hospital for a medical induction because natural induction wasn't working. So we wanted to have as much rest as we could. So taking that break at 4 a.m. was crucial to us having at least a little bit of energy.
Yeah, like Isabel and I really thought if we tried doing this for 8-12 hours, we can get into active labor. Like we really thought that was possible because we thought my body was ready. But turns out it wasn't.
Nope.
But you know, we didn't know. It's just the way it is. We weren't at 40 weeks yet. So basically, lesson learned I learned is that don't try to naturally induce yourself before 40 weeks, because most likely your body is not going to be ready to actually have a baby. And
don't get cholestasis.
Don't get cholestasis. Don't do it. Anyways,
Can't really help that, but.
Not that you can really help with that much. So then at 8 a.m. we woke up, we ate some food, and then we decided to head to the hospital to get medically induced because contractions still weren't long enough to be active labor. And at this point we knew like we have to have this baby before Sunday. So like we have no choice, but we have to go in and do this, whatever the heck's gonna happen. And I was like,
and
oh
it was
my
snowing.
goodness. It was snowing, and
It was
everyone.
snowing,
Yeah, that's another funny thing. The hospital did not want us to wait till the next day to come in
Because of the
because of the
snowstorm.
snow. And I'm over here like, I'm fine for mine. We'll be fine.
Yep.
And it was
So,
fine.
yep, the roads weren't actually that bad.
No.
They were fine.
We
got to
also-
the hospital fine.
We went before it was like really bad, but also like.
But it was snowing the whole day.
Yeah.
The whole day on Friday, and I think a little bit on Saturday too.
So we got to the hospital, and by 10:38 a.m. we were in triage, waiting to be admitted to the hospital, because at this point they were trying to find a room for me, because the previous night they had a room for me, but now I was trying to convince them that I need to be medically induced because that's what they told me I need to do. But they were trying to have a labor and delivery room for me, basically. Basically, like if you have to be medically induced, they will find a room for you. But if you just want to be induced for no reason, they're gonna send you home and they're not gonna let you stay. The only reason
And
we
had
were
a
able to be
pretty
there
good
because of
reason.
a medical
Yeah.
reason, which I still didn't like, but we just did it. Anyway, so at 12:19 p.m., we were finally admitted to the hospital labor room, and they gave me Cytotec drug to help like induce.
Well, not at first.
Really?
Because we,
Oh. No, I think they did.
you tried natural induction for a little bit, didn't you?
I don't think. No, I think they gave me Cytotec because I need a kick.
Okay. Maybe
That's
they
why
did.
we went in.
Yeah.
Pretty sure. The times could be a little off, but this is just somehow we wrote it in text. Somehow we found these times like in text messages. I don't even know
Well,
how.
I was keeping the family updated. My
So,
my
they're
parents and her
ish
parents.
times.
So, yeah.
So then, yeah, Cytotec to induce early labor contractions. And during this time, we continued doing squats, pumping, using herbs.
That's what I was thinking about.
And yeah,
So that was after you had the Cytotec.
yeah, it was just Isabel just kept having me do it because she thought she's like it's gonna help, like it's gonna
Yeah, I
help do
mean,
things.
why not keep doing natural induction methods?
Wow.
Because that reduces your chance of needing Pitocin or
Kind of.
an epidural.
If you're past
At least
40
that's
weeks.
what we thought.
If you're past 40 weeks, I think it would actually work, but it didn't really work
Yeah.
for me very well. Although I think it did help cause dilation in the face. It did help, but it just wasn't enough to ever kick me into active labor. I guess we did this. We were on Cytotec and all that natural induction stuff for like the next 4.5 hours, basically. So then at 4:22 p.m., we decided to have one of the midwives like basically check my cervix to see what was going on. And we were 3 centimeters. I was 3 centimeters dilated.
I was too.
Okay. 3 centimeters dilated and 70% effaced, which is good. So we thought like, oh yeah, like we're doing good.
We
this is
were
working.
thrilled,
actually
actually.
really
We're like,
happy.
man, natural induction,
Wow.
like it was working. So
So-
we were excited.
I decided to keep trying natural induction methods. Basically decided not to have Pitocin at that point because I thought we were making progress. And also I was like, oh, we can kick us into active labor in the next 4 hours. Like we can do it,
Yep.
And Isabel really thought we were going to have the baby that day. She really, we all really thought.
All of
we
us were
going
pretty
to.
convinced.
Yeah. I was like, it's probably going to be tonight or whatever. So we keep trying natural induction methods for like another 4 hours. Was it 5 hours? Maybe it was 5 hours. Oh my gosh, I'm looking at my outline. 5 hours. And so at 10:03 p.m., we decided to get another cervical check.
5 hours.
And we found out I was only like maybe 3.5 centimeters and like maybe 80% effaced. So not really a ton of progress in that last 5 hours.
And that was devastating.
That broke my mental brain.
And none of us were willing to say it, but we all
we
felt
were all like,
crushed.
oh.
Like, oh my goodness, like why isn't this working?
I was very exhausted at this point.
And
We only had 4 hours of sleep.
I realized that it was like not a great situation, and so I immediately prayed for God to encourage us and strengthen us and help us not be discouraged by that news.
Yeah, I remember in the moment, I remember just up until that point, I still had the mental capacity to keep going and being like, I got this, we can do this. And then just finding out that news was the start to my mental capacity not being able to handle it. So it turns out it wasn't the pain of it. It was never the pain. It was you. So this is why people talk about labor. It's very mental. And that's why you need to have a lot of rest beforehand, because it's actually if you can keep up your mental brain, you can get through the whole labor. You can do it. But I was losing my mental capacity to keep going and handle it. It wasn't actually the pain. It was from exhaustion. And Isabel at that time, it was so funny. Isabel was and Daniel were the only people, their belief in me to keep going, even though I think they were also losing mental belief, but they didn't tell me at the time. Their mental belief to tell me to keep going actually kept me going for about another 7 hours.
Yep.
Maybe-ish. Although what we did is, so I had to consider Pitocin because I was this is taking a while and I don't want to be stuck in early labor for a ton longer. I realized that my body's not going into active labor on its own without another kick. And so I realized that I think we need to do Pitocin. I'm over here like, oh no, not the dreaded Pitocin. That's so bad. Anyways.
What we had tried up to the point was not working, and if we kept going, it would just prolong. Well, she wasn't suffering at that point, but it would just prolong the labor. And so there comes a point when, if it's not working, you have to consider other options. And so that's when I had the conversation with Jen. It's like, I want you to be like completely confident, and so I don't want them to come and like force you into Pitocin, and I'd rather us have like some sort of limit, like we'll start Pitocin at such and such a point if what we're trying, the cytotec, is not working. And so that's kind of what I think prepared you mentally to consider that decision.
Yeah, and I mean, I think going into medical induction, it's always in your head like, I might have to do this, and I'm going to have to cope with it and deal with it. It was not like, oh, I'm definitely not going to do this. It was, there might come a point when we need to do this if all of our natural methods aren't enough.
Yeah.
And so I'd already kind of knew that in my head, but I wasn't willing to pull that card until it was absolutely necessary. Now, it's interesting, Daniel's brother Matthew actually told us, was it during that time or was it another time that, maybe it was after later, I don't know, but like there's this plateau, like the 3 to 4 centimeter mark can be this plateau where it takes forever to get past that point, like in early labor.
And then after that point, it can
like
get
skyrocket
into active labor like super fast.
Yeah. So basically, we were just stuck in that plateau, and I didn't know how long we were going to be stuck in that for. And I didn't want to exhaust ourselves so much to the point that I couldn't go any further type of thing. And I just was like, we just need this baby out. And so that's when, fix my hair. Okay. So that's when, so about 10:55 p.m., we did make a decision. So I guess it took about an hour to decide this. We did decide to start Pitocin. And so they started me on that. And then contractions were still pretty short with the Pitocin. They were like 30 seconds to 45 seconds, but they were also like right on top of each other. Like there'd be like 3 or more contractions like on top of each other, which is not exactly normal either, but apparently that's what Pitocin does to your body, and it's not very fun. And I remember during this time, I started thinking about dolphins in the ocean through contractions. I don't know why. This is actually, Daniel's actually writing an album about our birth and labor story. And the dolphins in the ocean, one of the songs in your album is going to be...
I'm doing a cover of Oceans. That's my plan.
Because I was listening to Oceans.
Well, yeah, I called it a Christian labor playlist. So I had a whole bunch of like soft Christian songs that would kind of, my hope was that it would comfort Jen and like give her peace.
Yeah.
And Oceans was the one that she liked the most, so I just put that on loop.
Yeah, it was just like calm and peaceful, because I just remember sitting there through contractions, like just, like Daniel was doing this like head press thing on me, which like helps with pain or whatever.
Like that.
Yeah, and you're just like, okay. And then I was sitting there just closing my eyes, just breathing through things, because that's just apparently how I cope with labor. Like I've never like screamed or like I took several birth courses that taught me how to just like relax my body, like every part of my body, which actually reduces the pain of contractions, which helps like a ton. And if you can think about other things during it, you can actually trick your mind into not feeling as much like pain, basically. So I was thinking about dolphins in the oceans. I don't know why, or yeah, that just happened. And yeah, so I'd get up to like 3 contractions right on top of each other, and I was handling that pretty well. And like honestly, I felt like at that point, I felt like, oh, I can do this. Like, you know, like we're gonna make progress, da da da. And then let's see. So, but then they kept turning up the Pitocin. It was probably only like a 3 at that point or whatever. Like started at a 1, then a 3. Like it can go up to 20, which that sounds like death, literally.
5, and yeah, we did 5, and
then they put me up to 5.
They got it up to 7.
They got me up to 7. So
and then there were contractions like one on top of another, like in rapid succession. So the nurse came in like really fast and turned it back down to 5, and that was kind of discouraging because we're like, oh, we're going backwards.
Yeah, it was like 4:30 a.m.
Yeah, 4:30 a.m. So this is what, 8 hours later?
No,
wait, 6 hours later.
6 hours later. No, 5. 5.5, 6 hours later.
A lot of
after
time
being
later.
on Pitocin for a while and trying to just get my body to do its thing. So Pitocin was up to 7. Contractions were like 30 seconds, 45 seconds, or a minute. But again, to get into active labor, you need all your contractions to be like a minute or longer, basically. So, because that's just what it takes to like dilate the cervix, basically. So, and with 3 to 5 contractions right on top of each other, I just remember being there. It just felt like literally, yeah, like 3 to 5 contractions. And contractions on Pitocin, it actually feels like you're being stabbed. Like, it's not just like a muscle pressure, like pelvic pressure, like normal contractions. It literally feels like someone is taking a knife and shoving it up into your ribs. And then it goes down. So like 3 to 5 on those on top of each other. And that was early labor. And I was like, what's active labor going to be like on Pitocin? This is awful.
Yeah.
But I thought that was normal. But I also was telling myself, this is probably way more stronger than like natural labor is, because it is.
Yeah.
It makes it way worse.
You were also diagnosed with something else. Was it
what else I had?
GBS?
Oh yes, like is it strep B? No, it's like that thing you have to get like an IV antibiotic for.
Yeah, so you have
when
to have
you
an
have
antibiotic
baby.
drip if you have during active labor. And so we were doing Pitocin, and at 4:30 a.m. I realized they still haven't given Jen the antibiotic, which means we're still in early labor after all this time.
Yeah,
and
I
I didn't tell anybody about how I felt about that, but I was like, oh my goodness, like when is she going to actually get into active labor? So
yeah,
it was crazy.
it was not good. It was insane.
Yeah.
So
and the contractions, like at this point, they were lasting 30 seconds to a minute, so they were still very short. And so I was just looking at the chart, watching them, praying, Lord God, please help them get longer. Please help us get into active labor. And some of them like started getting longer, but then most of them were just still 30 seconds to a minute. And
yeah, so by this time, like around 5 a.m., they turned the Pitocin down to a 3, basically to give me a break, because they were like,
she was so exhausted.
I was so exhausted.
I talked with
And
Isabel,
yeah.
our doula, and said, this isn't working. I think we need to like consider pivoting to something else. I didn't know what that was, but we had to change something, because again, like with the Cytotec, the Pitocin wasn't doing it. So, and if we turned it up higher to a 7, it just would hurt Jen excruciatingly.
They would have had
So-
to turn it up higher. Like they would have,
but that wasn't practical at the time. So what we concluded is that Jennifer needed to rest, and so they brought the Pitocin down to 3, and we all geared up to take a nap.
That may have been before 5 a.m.
It-
Some of
it
these
could have
times are a
been.
little off.
Yeah. So anyway, I put the mat down on the ground, and like we were all just getting ready to go to sleep and take a nap. And right when I was like coming down, about to lay my head on my pillow, Jennifer said, "Daniel." I was like, "Oh." I was like, "Oh no," because I had been up 2.5 days. I'm not sure if it's at this point, but by the end of the labor and delivery, I had been up for 2.5 days, and so like I was exhausted. But Jen needed me, so I got up and I went to her bedside and was like, "What's going on?" And she's like, "What did you say? Do you remember?"
I don't remember my exact words. I think I maybe had to go to the bathroom.
She was saying, "I'm exhausted." The contraction.
We
she told
went
me
to the
that
bathroom first.
the contractions were still hard.
Oh yeah, even
she
as
was just so
Pitocin,
exhausted.
it just
Even-
felt like raw,
Yeah.
like a raw pain constantly. So
Yeah.
like if they slept, I'd be sitting there in raw pain for hours. Like I
She
would
wasn't
not
going
be
to
able
be
to sleep.
sleeping at
There
all.
was no way I was sleeping with
Yeah.
these things going on inside me. So we went to the bathroom because I had to go to the bathroom, and that's when I told them that like I was so mentally exhausted. And just physically exhausted after we had been doing this for 35 hours, like of labor basically, and still in early labor, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is
She
awful.
told me if I don't do something, I'm gonna die.
Yeah, that's what I
Like,
felt. I felt like I was
she
gonna
was
die
that desperate.
from
So
physical
I got into a
exhaustion.
place like that kind of scared me, but I couldn't show it. I had to be strong and confident for her because I couldn't despair either because she was despairing, and so I was like, no, don't say that. We're gonna get through this. You're strong.
Labor is fake it till you make it.
And I was like, we'll consider. We'll talk to the nurses. We'll consider what the next step is. And Jennifer was the one who brought up
Yeah,
she called it the E word.
the E word.
She didn't even want to say.
Okay, I'm so against epidural, and I'm still so against an epidural. The only reason I did it was because I felt like I was suffering and no longer able to bear it because I was mentally and physically exhausted. So it wasn't like the pain, it was actually my mental capacity to handle it was gone. like just gone. Like my brain was just broken. That's why they say that if you can have a good, strong mental state throughout labor, you can handle it, and you can. And so, especially natural labor, like you can really handle it if you just keep your mental capacity strong and you are well rested before going into it. And I was not.
I didn't suggest an epidural because I knew that was something that Jennifer really didn't want.
It was my call, basically. What
I did suggest was a cervical check to see where we were at and to see if like an epidural was something that we needed to consider. I just wanted to prepare Jen for the idea like we need something to kind of evaluate what the next step is because we need to have a next step.
I think at that point I was truly feeling that if I didn't get relief at that point, I was going to get to the point of pushing or an active labor. I literally felt like I would get to pushing and I would literally feel like I'm going to pass out and die from complete exhaustion, mental exhaustion, body exhaustion, the pain. I felt like truly, I thought if I don't change and get an epidural, I'm going to end up in a C-section. And in my brain, C-section was the worst scenario to happen because I didn't want to have to go through recovery of a C-section because that would just make our lives really hard. Like, that was the one thing I did not want to happen. Like, I did not want an epidural, but C-section was the worst case scenario.
And in the back of my mind, I was preparing for a C-section. I didn't tell anybody at the time, but I was like, the way this is going, like I would not be surprised if we had to have a C-section to get the baby out.
Yeah, and so...
But what I did do is I went to the nursing station outside of our hospital room and I said, hey, we need to consider some options here because Jennifer's in despair and I think we should get a cervical check, but I would like you to come into the room to talk with Jen to discuss the next step. And so they came in and we must have spent an hour or two. Well, actually, can we see how long that actually was?
Let's see.
An hour and a half.
And we spent about an hour from me saying epidural in the bathroom to when I actually decided to get the epidural due to exhaustion and feelings of suffering because I was stuck in my labor.
The nurse was there. Isabel, our doula, was there. I was there. We were all. We were not forcing an epidural on her, but we were asking her to like consider an epidural. We were. Yeah. Helping her work through because like
I just wanted to talk her through because I needed to talk it through.
Like we couldn't say we have to get an epidural now. Jennifer had to be on board with that.
It had to be my decision basically.
Yeah, it had to be her decision, and our job was to support her and help her, assist her in making the best decision possible.
It would just take me a long time to make decisions because I was so broken. I was like,
because I was like. In my mind, I was like, we really just need to like move forward and like get an epidural. Yeah, but if I had done that, that would have stressed Jen out even more. Yeah. And that would have been worse.
So yeah, that's the thing with labor, you have to let the laboring person make the call, and you have to wait for them to make the call. You can't have
because you want them to remain confident in labor, and you don't want them to feel out of control.
Yep. And now we're going to take a quick commercial break.
Not that we're ever in control. God's in control.
Wait a second, one more thing. So wait, I'm going to say one more thing. So basically by 7:38 a.m., we decided to get the epidural. So I was given epidural. I was given the epidural. And now we're going to take a commercial break.